I'm called Barongo va Kafuuzi Ateenyi, and I'm introducing a book entitled Where Do You Go? The Woman in Me, a case of aggravated individual programming. Where do you go? The woman in me, a case of aggravated individual programming. And I'm the writer of the book. So what is this book about? The book is about women all over, women in our universe. In other words, this is a universal book. What does it say about women? The book is about the status of women. That is to say, what position does the woman occupy in the world? What is her right or rights? What is she entitled to or not entitled to at all? Is she human like everybody else and at the same level as everybody else? Or she's different? The reasons I ask these questions are in the final book, but here we get just a snapshot in this video. Again, I'm called Barongo va Kafuuzi Ateenyi. Those are my names. I'm a social researcher and a writer based in Uganda, East Africa. Part 1 of this preview. What is the book about? The book is about women, as already stated. It is about women generally and everywhere in the world. That is to say, what is that creature called a woman? What is it about? Do we understand it? The book has a subtitle, A Case of Aggravated Individual Programming. And what is the main title about? We shall come back to this later on after some explanation so that we can understand it better. Let's go to part 2. What exactly does the book say about women? Well, all over the world, women are usually taken as second-rate citizens. I mean second-rate citizens. What do I mean by this? Of course, this varies across societies with differing intensities or magnitudes and different perspectives across the board. But what is settled is that generally women are often regarded as less occupants of the world. Therefore, they are demeaned, degraded, disregarded, marginalized, underlooked or overlooked, as if they are less people, less human, particularly less than men. They are usually treated as aliens or outsiders on the globe, as if they don't belong equally like everybody else. Women are also regarded as the weaker sex. You may have heard this often. Yes, weaker sex. But weaker sex in what sense? What is it about women that makes them weak? What is that many do and women cannot do that makes them weak? Are they less than human? Are they less competent than men? In what sense are women less competent or weak? What's lacking about them? This is what this book is about. Part 3. In many of the interventions about women all over the world, we seem to be proceeding from a point of inadequate knowledge about them. And it is this book that seeks to put right the trend for such proceedings. It endeavours to answer the so many hitherto unanswered questions or enigmas about the women. For instance, why do women occupy a second-class citizenship in the world? Don't they equally belong? Why do the residual roles in leadership and the other social domains, and many do the main and critical or strategic ones? And this pertains in all societies in the world, including those who claim to be the most civilized or advanced or educated or developed. Even democratic societies. Why do women stick even in failed or shattered marriages where they are the subject of gross abuses, even adverse ones? And this sometimes doesn't matter whether the woman is so-called educated or not. Why do even mature women sometimes succumb to being ruled by even their own sons? Yes, succumb to being ruled even by their own sons. This happens a lot in Africa and many related societies in the world. By related here, I mean in a sense of the levels of socioeconomic advancement or retardation. Here I'm particularly looking at Africa, most of Asia, Latin America, and to some extent Eastern Europe. Those societies are said to be primitive. That is why they oppress women. But this is not enough. Even in so-called developed or advanced societies, women are still oppressed as much. They are denied their essential rights, plus violating them socially, physically, and politically. For instance, the United States of America, one of the allegedly most advanced nations on earth, and which has been independent for all 250 years, that is to say, 2.5 centuries, has never had a female president, and maybe it may not have one soon. Why? You don't want to tell me that there a woman has never qualified to become a president, or that society has never grown to that level to appreciate the importance and ability of a woman. No, it's not true. This is outright abuse of a woman. Her denial, exclusion, marginalization, repression, even deprivation. Part 4. Why do women sometimes become the major obstacles to their fellow women in rising up socially, economically, or politically? This is about women themselves. You may have known this or seen it or had it. And this is not because the two are fighting over a man or anything else. No. It is because the two are women. Women conflict over positions, and this is despite the fact that all are marginalized. Of course, you're going to ask me, don't men also conflict? True, men conflict also, but men are the givers of these opportunities. So it doesn't matter as much because they are the ones in control after all. It is their thing. They are haggling over what they own. But how about women who own nothing and yet they're haggling over nothing? I can add, for instance, why in some circumstances do women have even to struggle for equal pay as the men, when in fact they are doing the same job? Are they less human than others, especially less than men? Of course they are not. But why? Why be treated like this? The situations go on and on. Part 5. The book sets out to answer many of the above questions, of course majorly as the effect of social programming. Mark me. Social programming. That is what I'm talking about. What do I mean by social programming? Social programming of the woman, that is to say. What again do I mean by social programming? By social programming, I mean the unconscious or involuntary or spontaneous condition that women find themselves in as an act of men. Particularly, that conditioning of the women by men and society generally to accept and do things that otherwise they should not have done, if they were aware and capable of objection. Of course, by capable, I mean freedom to choose. Funny it is, isn't it? Yes, funny it is, but also very controversial. The conditioning of women by men and society generally to accept and do what otherwise they should not have done if they were aware and free to choose. A very disturbing phenomenon indeed. But that is the absurdity. That is the absurdity. So, conditioning in what sense? Part 6. I'm arguing that women are programmed socially, ideologically, to submit to a man and to pity and denigrate themselves as women. What do I mean again? Thus you'll hear, me a woman, I can't manage that. Me a woman, no, I can't do that. I can't afford that as a woman. This is not for women, it is for men. Yes, of course, there are a few things that are not for women, just as there are a few things that are not for men either. But what is it that significantly differentiates a man and a woman morally, in brackets intellectually, or in terms of capacity? I mean, what differentiates a man and a woman in terms of fundamental value as humanity? What is that? That is the fundamental question here. Part 7. How then does this conditioning or programming come about? And why does it happen at all in any case? Are women less intelligent? Are they people or they are not people? Why then do they succumb to being programmed? This is a major question. Part A. Usually, the conditioning is basically through the institution and indeed the agency of the man, and through the mode of socialization and social instruction. That is an act of society. Society shapes women to fear men, and society shapes women to be at the receiving end of everything. Men are the aggressors, men are the givers. What a combination. They are a superpower of sorts. Thus we have phenomena like women do not do this, or women do not do the other, all mostly set by men. We restrict and restrain them, and this is running across the world. All societies, that is to say. Apparently, women have more don'ts than men, and men are often the givers of everything and the rulers of society. Thus, they are the setters of these trends, while women are the led or ruled or subjects, and therefore the takers of the rules and the standards, almost like children. But why and what can be done about this? Part 9. The solution lies in the solution lies not in one person or one government or one society either, but in all of us as human in the world. We are called upon to understand and rediscover the woman. That is to say, to understand the woman with a moral commitment to correcting our unfairness and injustices towards her. Part 10. I have used the phrase, "Where do you go?" Mark that. Remember the title, "Where do you go, the woman in me?" So, what do I mean by the phrase, "Where do you go?" Where do you go, the woman in me? What do I mean by this question? And what do I mean by the phrase, "the woman in me"? First, the phrase, "Where do you go?" refers to the usual disappearance, the diminishing, the shrinking, the fading, the non-self-emphasis, the non-self-representation, the non-competence or non-participation of the woman in many of our usual domains. That is to say, political, economic, religious, cultural, sometimes even scientific. Usually, the woman tends not to appear as assertive, in brackets, competitive, or present, or confident, or self-manifesting as everybody else in these situations. She is often the residual participant in many of our social undertakings, always keeping the hind or peripheral moments. Yet we are born the same, by the same mother and the same father, the same human being. We are made of the same material, humanity. So we are the same thing. Therefore, how come that the woman is then non-participative and non-confident as the rest? Why is she looked at as less competent than the men? Why? What is the problem? What is it about women that makes them this less or non-participative? Part 11. When I was born, I found two people in this world, a man and a woman. Two categories of the creature called people. My father and my mother. And it was the same for everyone else in the world. And the two that I found were like conjoined twins, or twins simply. They lived together, they existed together, they moved together. Wherever one was, the other was. One could not do well without the other. They were the two faces of the earth, or of a coin. You either had a coin, and that meant two faces, or you had no coin at all, and that's no face at all. It was always man and woman. So you could not have had humanity without both. And all the humanity that we have known to date has been them, man and woman. So they are integral and pertinent to each other, and indeed integral to life. Therefore equal. No one is less than the other, no one is more than the other. The two fulfill or complete each other. So they need each other all the time. They can't do without each other. The woman will come to us as mother, sister, wife, daughter, and friend in that order. Correspondingly, the man will come to us as father, brother, husband, son, and a friend in the same order. Always conjoined twins. But sometimes I go to hunt, any hunt. Not that I'm talking of wild hunting or in any activity. And note here that I am being original or primitive, that is to say, I'm looking back in the very beginning of humanity. And I'm cutting across edges of all times and all the different races of humanity, i.e. taking care of all levels of human progression or none at all over the period. So I'm cutting across human society of all time. Again, as I said, I go to hunt, any hunt, and she's not available. The woman, she has disappeared, or she has shrunk, she has diminished. That is to say, she's not as participative as she should be, especially as myself, a man. I go to cultivate, and she's not available either, anywhere around. She has shrunk again. Of course, here you will wonder that at least in most of the less developed societies of the world, women do most cultivation, particularly if it has to involve manual engagement. So, there, they participate even more than men. Yes, true. But also, regardless of this, their impact or reflection in economics, in the economies of these communities is usually suppressed or demeaned. So it is like the men there arrogate themselves the product and the work of the woman. So still there they disappear. I go to play, even play football or soccer or others, and she's not visible as she should be. Even when she's there, she's a spectator. She has diminished as usual, shrunk, or disappeared. Always on the periphery, always on the margins. I go to dance, even a dance, the usual dance, and she's not anywhere in sight. She has recoiled again. Note that these moments don't necessarily cut across all society, all cultures, all societies, or social systems. They vary with the systems and intensity. That is to say, even in the very ordinary activities, she usually misses. These are activities where normally she should have been and participated equally and confidently. But she does not do so, or does so residually, inadequately, that is to say. So I am asking, where do you go, the woman in me? Where do you disappear? Why don't we play at the same level? Why don't we foot at the same footing? Why do we operate? Why don't we operate at the same level? Part 12. I can extrapolate this further. Women occupy a second-rate position in the world as if they don't equally belong. They also bear the brunt of most social crises and instabilities, like the COVID-19 pandemic of the 2019 and onwards, and its predecessor, HIV/AIDS, of the 1980s and onwards. Both these incidents and their effects have more proportionally impacted the women than the men. Both led to increased poverty and gender violence among women than men. We have also known the incidences of massive rapes and other sexual molestations during political or military upheavals. Often targeting women in lieu of settling ethnic or cultural or national scores, or even individual sex grief. Women, if they have lived through these turmoils, often bear children from these circumstances, and they have to carry and bring them up all their lives, regardless of their torturesome and traumatizing memories. Of course, apart from the children of crisis or conflict, women also normally bear children whom they always have to carry, like they don't have their fathers. Always the woman's burden. Part 13. The woman in me. What exactly do I mean by the phrase the woman in me? What do I mean? What I mean is that first the woman begets me, she produces me as a mother. Therefore, I have her blood and genes in me. Secondly, she is my soul because she gave me that soul, and because I come from her womb, her body. Therefore, she is in me and part of me. Thirdly, the woman is born with me as a sister. Therefore, we are one and together, because we come from the same womb and share in genes. So, she's part of me. To add to this, that time, that day, when either of us was conceived in our mother's womb, it could have gone either way. It could have been her or me. So she has half, and I have half of the chances. In other words, we are equal, 50-50. Fifthly, the woman is my partner, my wife sometimes. Therefore, we share a moral soul. Sixthly, the woman is my daughter. Therefore, my blood, therefore, part of me. Seventhly, the woman is my friend, my colleague, my companion, a soulmate. Therefore, the woman is me and is in me. So, we are the same and one, always conjoined. And so I ask, where do you go, the woman in me? Where do you disappear? Where do you fail? Where do you shrink in all these circumstances? And why do you disappear at all? Part 14. A case of aggravated individual programming. A case of aggravated individual programming. That is the subtitle of the book. A case of aggravated individual programming. What is this about? What do I mean by aggravated individual programming? First is the concept of aggravated. Second is the concept of programming. What does aggravated mean? Aggravated means extreme or adverse. Exaggerated means exaggerated, gross, or overdone. An overdose of something, usually in the worst form. Something negative, aggravated, or exacerbated. So what is programming? Programming means tuning or shaping or accustoming something or someone to the whims and fancies of another. That is, tuning someone to the control of others. That is to say, a person is almost mentally or morally owned or controlled by another, switched on and off. That's again to say, reducing that person to a robot-like phenomenon. So, who is reducing another to a robot-like phenomenon? Are women robots? Is the man reducing the woman to a robot? Very controversial and possibly reprehensive also. Nasty, in fact, particularly to the woman. But anyway, just read the book, you will love it. And by this revelation, you learn something. Part 15. Programming a woman. What do I mean by programming a woman? Does a woman not have an own agency, an own self? Is she not self-intelligent? Is she not complete and capable? Is she lacking in any way? Is she not as good as anybody else on earth? Are we not equal? If we are equal, then what makes a woman programmable? How do you program a woman? What does it mean to program a woman anyway? Why does the woman have to be programmed in any case? Why does she succumb or become susceptible to being programmed at all, moreover by a man? The answer to these questions is in the book. Particularly, this is because of being overwhelmed by a man physically, morally, or psychologically. Men come on as very aggressive, and it's like there is a conspiracy among them world over to repress women. All men repress women. Well, maybe men could be the less developed, or less evolved of the two creatures after all. Maybe we need to find out this. This book provides a moment for contemplation and also solutions to many of the raised questions. End of the preview. But I want to add a point about the book cover. A note about the book cover. I call this poetic. This is why. First, it is the color. green. Second is the choice of a dark blot in the middle. Third is the question mark. Why the green color? Well, it is appreciated that this is deeply a human rights book. Yes, especially it is about the human rights of a woman. But of course, by implication, also about the human rights of a man, especially since 1, a man is also a human being, 2, a man is also a product of a woman, and 3, a man is the other partner of the woman on this earth. Secondly, human rights is all about our well-being, all of us, and therefore about our life. And there is no color that represents life and well-being, in brackets, vitality, better than green. So it is a life book. Thirdly, why the dark blot in the middle? Well, I've explained this in the book. One of those moments during the conception of the book which caught my attention was the 2 ladies or girls I saw in a bar in Nakulabe, a suburb of Kampala City in Uganda, in the years 2000. I don't drink, but the bar, or bars in this case, were by the roadside, and even if one was just passing by, they could see what was going on there. There were these 2 ladies or girls who were close to nudity. They were waitresses. And the question to me was, why did they have to dress like this? In fact, to molest themselves. Of course, this moment was not the spark cause of the book. No. I had seen several similar situations elsewhere before, but I had not yet woken up to the reality of this abuse of the women. So this is how I came to easily identify this one. I could appreciate situations like this one as a dictate or demand of the business. It was not only in this bar, it was now a tradition or custom or culture everywhere to require that ladies working in businesses like this, i.e. entertainment industries and others like saunas, gambling places, etc., strip themselves to boost business by attracting customers, particularly men. This was in effect stripping women for business, and it was done by all men and women business operators. So it was a problem. Of course, even out there, women could on their own volition strip themselves for any reason. But here it was a demand or dictate. So why the blot? I could have presented real pictures of these ladies on the book cover because I had them. But I realized that this was incorrect for various reasons. First, I did not have a legal right to expose these girls, even if they were serving in public. But also, there are many people who might have been put off by the expletive show, so they would not have wanted anything to do with the book. Thus, they would not have read my book, and I didn't want to miss them. So, I suppressed the pictures with this dark blot. Finally, the question mark. This is the big question in the book, where do you go, the woman in me? Where do you disappear? That is for the book cover. But I want to close this video with something very critical. I note that this is a controversial issue that the wicked easily and often they do grab on in order to repress or take advantage of the woman. That is the concept of weaker sex. That women are a weaker sex. Well, what is weaker sex? What does it mean? Normally speaking, what defines a woman as a weaker sex is basically and only in terms of their reproductive roles. They conceive, they produce, they suckle their babies, they feed them up to age 4 or 5, they clothe them, they bear the medical roles for them, although some men sometimes can undertake this also. They provide the primary safety and security of the child and a few related roles which limit their travel out of home and bind them to doing only domestic chores and home roles. Note that I'm defining a woman in her pristine condition before technology and modern education. Why? Because these two have liberated them somehow. However, even then, whatever compromises, even in their pristine condition, whatever compromises a woman sexually should not compromise their full rights as people. They remain total and complete, therefore effectively competent for any tasks in society. The concept of weaker sex must therefore be limited. It must be controlled. For it takes an unscrupulous, wicked again, in brackets, wicked mind to exaggerate and use it to exploit others. This is criminal. So please find the book and read it. It is available at africanbooks.com and amazon.com. In Uganda, find it in Aristoc Bookshop, Mukono Bookshop, and Uganda Bookshop, all in Kampala City. Thank you.